Multiple Commanders starters are dealing with injuries, including star edge rusher Chase Young. Going to be breaking down the injury updates here in just a second. Then also, I went over the Week 1 preseason film of that win over the Browns, and I came away some pretty interesting takeaways there that I'm going to share with you guys later on in today's show. But before we get into today's action, go ahead and click that subscribe button and join our family here at the Commanders Report. We're going to be doing a live watch party for Monday Night Football next week when the Commanders face off against the Baltimore Ravens. We're going to have a bunch of people in here watching that game, so make sure that you click that subscribe button to never miss any of our live watch parties here in 2023. Now let's get into the injury updates here, starting with Chase Young, who was removed from Friday's preseason game with a stinger in his neck. Now, sometimes stingers can really be prolonged injuries. They're not considered major injuries, but sometimes they can take a couple of weeks to kind of heal from. But the good news is that Chase Young is back at practice, and this isn't considered a major injury. He's still expected to be the Week 1 starter for the Commanders when they play the Arizona Cardinals there at the start of the 2023 campaign. So that's great news with Chase Young. Hopefully he can recover from that as soon as possible, and he really did look good against the Browns there on Friday night. Then another starter that is dealing with an injury right now, cornerback Benjamin St-Juste sat out today's practice with an ankle injury. And listen, Benjamin's been somebody that's really shown out in camp to this point. Kind of sucks that he's dealing with that ankle issue right now. Head coach Ron Rivera said that he tweaked it in Sunday's practice, and out of sheer protectionary measures here they took him out of practice today just to be cautious with him. I expect him to be back in practice here before that Week 2 preseason matchup against the Ravens. And then Sam Cosmi hyperextended his knee at practice today, was removed, and then he eventually came back. So that's good to hear that Sam was well enough to come back to practice, finish the practice. Now, he's probably going to have to be dealing with this for probably the next couple of weeks where he's not going to be 100%. But right now, he's really trying to do a good job at making that transition over from tackle to guard. And he's definitely going to want to be at practice to try to make that as smooth of a transition as he possibly can make it. And then, of course, Logan Thomas and Phidarian Mathis are both dealing with calf injuries, respectively. Did not practice today, and Logan is somebody that, he's been a veteran in this league. They're hoping that he can get back here pretty soon, but Curtis Hodges looked pretty decent there in that preseason matchup against the Browns last Friday. So Logan is definitely somebody that I want to see this preseason before the start of the year. Now, I've got some Commanders film study takeaways coming up next on the Commanders Report. But before I get into those, let's have a word from our sponsor at BetUS. And they're offering you guys a 125% deposit bonus when you go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code CHAT125 when you get there. And what does that mean, 125% deposit bonus? That means that if you put in a deposit of $100 to $600, they're going to match that figure 125% to use on your bet. So if you put in $100, they're going to give you $125 additional dollars to use on your bet, so $225 total. And you might as well use it on maybe this preseason matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, it's preseason. Let's have some fun with these bets, man. You can take advantage of this right now and throughout the season. Right now, go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code CHAT125 to get that 125% deposit bonus. All right, so now let's talk about some of these takeaways that I came away with after I went over the film from that first week of the preseason. And that first takeaway, and some people are going to be upset about this, but Sam Howell was not as polished as his stat line might have suggested there on Friday night. Now, I think I'm optimistic about Sam and his future here heading into 2023. And you look at the stat line, it looks really, really good. 9 of 12, 77 yards, and a touchdown. You look at those stats and you're like, man, Sam really played well. But when I was looking back at the film, he got happy feet a lot. The footwork improvements that I was expecting to see, I didn't really see on his tape. And then also that touchdown pass to Jahan Dotson was not a very good pass. It was high, it was a little bit off to the side, and Jahan made an incredible catch and then also finished the run there to get into the end zone. So, Howell is somebody that still showed some of those inconsistencies that I saw on his film last year, and even going back to the University of North Carolina. Now, does that mean that I think Sam Howell sucks and that he's not going to be a good quarterback this year? No, I'm just saying that, I came away from Friday thinking, man, this guy has it all together. And then after I watched the film, I was like, you know what? He still has a little ways to go. Now, granted for Sam, he was under pressure a lot, and we'll get into the offensive line in here in just a second. But overall, I am still optimistic about Sam Howell here with the Washington Commanders. It was just the first week of the preseason. He was under pressure a lot. I've seen some good things in practice, and, overall the stat line was very good. Okay, 9 of 12. I'm not trying to bash the kid too much here, but to say that he was completely buttoned up, I think is incorrect. And there's definitely some things I need to see from Sam before I can officially crown him as the next franchise quarterback of the Washington Commanders. Then my second takeaway from watching the film back is that Chase Young, I'm convinced now, he's going to be a breakout star for this defense here in 2023. I'm ready to say that with pretty darn good certainty, because the big question with Chase has always been, are you going to be able to develop your pass rushing finesse? He's always had the great size and strength. He's always had the great speed. And he's always relied on that stuff going back to high school, going back to college, because he could get away with it. But you come into the NFL, and some of these left tackles are super, super athletic. And I think that Young has finally developed that finesse area of his game. Going back to his rookie season, going back to 2021, even when he played a little bit last year, he didn't really have much of a plan when rushing the football, but now it really seems like this year he's put in a ton of time with his pass rushing coach to work with the hand fighting, different stuff, and he won multiple times on Friday with finesse moves, with his hand placement, with a rip move. He had some fantastic moves on Friday night, completely showing me once and for all that he's finally developed that portion of his game, and with that strength and with that speed, this guy's going to be something special in the National Football League. And listen, if I fall flat on my face on that and the guy stinks this year, then I'll completely own that. But at this point, I am feeling very confident that Chase Young is going to be a really, really good edge rusher in the National Football League, and this is going to be his breakout season. Now, predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will Chase Young lead the Washington Commanders in sacks this season? That's going to be a tall task, as he lines up next to Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Montez Sweat. But I think Chase Young can do it. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments by giving me a yes or by giving me a no. This is going to be a pinned comment on today's show. So whenever YouTube throws you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds, answer today's pinned question with a yes or no. And my third takeaway from going over the All-22 last night was that the offensive line was a lot worse than I thought it was, okay? So, here's the thing with Washington. Only 2 sacks allowed in that game on Friday, and I thought overall, against a good defensive line like Cleveland, just 2 sacks isn't that bad, right? But, I look at the film, and there's consistent losses on the film at multiple positions, multiple guys losing. Of course, there's Andrew Wiley's holding call in the end zone that ended up in a safety. And there was just a lot of losing along the Commanders' offensive line last Friday. And that kind of disappointed me, because I came away from Friday night watching the game like, dang, we actually did a pretty decent job on the offensive line. But going over the film again, that wasn't the case, unfortunately. And right now, Ron Rivera needs to be able to see that this is a glaring need. Okay, he's seen it through the first couple weeks of training camp. He's now seen it in a preseason game. He needs to understand that this is a glaring need on this roster, and if he doesn't fix it by going to free agency and getting a guy like Ben Jones, getting a guy like Dalton Reisner, right, one of these available offensive interior linemen that have done a really good job in this league, if he doesn't pick one of them up, then it's on him. There's no excuses going into the league. If this offensive line is terrible and he doesn't do anything to address it, he can't just hide behind it and say, oh, the offensive line was terrible. Well, it's because he didn't address it, Ron. So here's the thing, man. If you're going to be rolling with this offensive line, they better get a lot better and fast, or I think it's going to get ugly here for head coach Ron Rivera. And my final takeaway from watching the All-22 from Friday is that undrafted free agent wide receiver out of Penn State, Mitchell Tinsley, was just as good as I thought he was, man. Ron Rivera and this Commanders coaching staff kind of buried him on the Commanders depth chart heading into the week, and he played, kind of with the third string offense. But when he was out there, man, he was cooking dudes. Like this guy in Penn State, I was watching his film during the draft process, and I'm like, how is this guy being projected to be a day 3 pick or an undrafted free agent? He is such a smooth route runner. He's got good hands. He's pretty good after the catch. I compare his game to like a Kendrick Bourne of the New England Patriots, where he's not going to blow you away. He's not going to be a star in this league, but he does a lot of things really, really well. And to get him as an undrafted free agent was really impressive to see, and he was definitely the best wide receiver on the field for Washington in the second half of that game against the Cleveland Browns. Really thought that he looked really, really good, in my opinion, man. He had only one catch for 26 yards, but he was consistently winning on his routes. That's exactly what you want to see from a guy like Mitchell Tinsley, and I can't wait to see how he does for the rest of the preseason. That's going to be it for me today, Commanders fans. If you are a real one and made it to the end of today's show, I want you to let me know by going down to the comment section and typing real one in all caps so I know that you are a real one and made it to the end today. That'll be it for me today, guys. Really do appreciate all the support. I will see you guys later, and as always, hail to the Commanders.